Hey, what's up guys, Wolf here. For those of you who are actually not nursing hangovers after Halloween night last night, today is part 2 of the League Strategy Series. We are splitting the videos up a little bit different. As I was recording the tiers, I started to realize that grouping up the OU and UU tiers makes for a very long video. I clocked in at just under 2 hours. So we're going to condense some of the data, split the tiers up into each tier having its own video, and then we're going to release them each day for the next 4 days to end on Wednesday. So after we do that, everything will still be available in time for all the drafts that will be happening this weekend for both the EGL, I think the TCL is also drafting, and possibly the GBA if they haven't started yet. I haven't checked yet, so I don't know for sure. So, that being said, we'll try not to make this video too long. Keep in mind when we draft OU, we're not drafting specifically for power. Each tier's kind of got its own goal, kind of its a mini goal mindset that you should have for each tier. OU tier being, with all the high-powered megas, all the high-powered Pokemon, you should ideally aim to build a core for the OU. So even though these lists coming up, because we have a top 10 list for the regular non-megas and then a top 5 list for the megas, even though they're ranked to be best of the best, they might not fit your core. Just about everything in OU is viable to a certain extent, so if it's not on the list, don't be afraid to suddenly not pick it and pick just for power. You definitely want to get a core started first, and then take your core from there and build on that. So as we get to the UU and the RU tiers, your team will be fleshed out, and you can afford to pick kind of cherry pick power picks here and there. So I do apologize. My throat's a little dry from talking so much over these videos lately. But I will be looking away from the screen every so often. I got a lot of notes. I'll show you. A lot of notes. So I got a lot of stuff to refer to get these lists up for you, so you guys can get all the data you need to process, so you can pick appropriately when it comes time for drafting. So, without further ado, we'll get started. Again, keep in mind, these lists are not set in stone. They're simply top 10 lists of things from my experience and from the experience of people who've been playing in other leagues who have offered me input that they say is things you need to look for. So, just because your favorite Pokemon is not on there doesn't mean you can't draft it. It simply means that something else probably does the job better. So, we'll start with megas, because megas are generally, if you're early on, your very first pick. I will not be adding, by the way, Mega Metagross or Hoopa Unbound to either of these lists. I make that choice because a lot of leagues coming up, especially talk among the UCL, talk among the EGL, a couple other leagues have already banned Mega Metagross. But the general consensus is that Mega Metagross is just too powerful for league format, partly because of how versatile it is and its stat pool. It's just overall too good for league, and a lot of leagues, especially if the UCL will ban it, are going to go forward based on that and ban theirs as well. Hoopa Unbound for the same reason, very versatile, incredibly hard to switch into. So neither of those are going to be on these lists. If your league does allow them, those become top picks, because those are far and above better than just about anything else you're going to be able to pull for league, and just about anything else on your team is going to benefit from it. So keep that in mind when we go through these. First up, probably my favorite mega in the tier, Mega Venusaur. Mega Venusaur is in a unique place in being what I feel is one of the best megas to reward good play. When I say that, I mean it's got very bulky stats in the 120s across the board, as well as over 120 special attack. So it can deal some damage and take some damage. It's got excellent recovery in things like Giga Drain and Leech Seed. It also gets Substitute if for whatever reason you wanted to run a Subseed set. Gets Sludge Bomb, gets Toxic, gets Synthesis for recovery, gets Sunny Day if you really want to go high-powered crazy on it. But it also has the ability to run a physical set too. Gets things like knockoff, power whip, things of that nature to kind of catch your opponent off guard. If for some of whatever reason you wanted to do that, you have the option to do that. But for the most part, you're going to be running special sets. Probably some combination of Sludge Bomb, Giga Drain, maybe some HP Fire, HP Ice, and Synthesis most of the time. Thick Fat, being its primary ability, of course reduces its weaknesses in half, takes out the Fire and Ice weakness almost entirely, and just leaves it to basically Flying and Psychic. So make sure you pick appropriately in your next team member to be able to handle both of those. Otherwise, a lot of people have used it before in ladder. A lot of people like its power level, and a lot of people rank it very highly. So I as well follow suit. In terms of powerhouses, if you can't get Mega Metagross, the two Charizards are very excellent places, especially Mega Charizard X. Now, that's the one I'm going to be focusing on for the top 5 list. Mega Charizard Y is still decent enough. Drought is still very powerful. 159 special attack is still great on it. But Mega Charizard X brings a couple extra things to the table. One of them is Tough Claws. Tough Claws is insanely good for the same reason it's insanely good on Mega Metagross. It boosts the attack power of your moves by an incredible amount. Just takes it, blows it right out of the water, increases those power, and gets those one-hit kills a lot easier. Now, the reason why I don't rank it highly in terms of being something like best in the league is for the simple reason that it's not entirely flexible, which is something I value highly in league. Most of its movesets are very easy to predict. It's going to have Flare Blitz. It's going to have Dragon Dance, being the best Dragon Dance, arguably the best Dragon Dancer in the entire league, let alone the tier. Probably going to have Dragon Claw, and then the last slot is usually a flex slot for something like Earthquake, or something crazy like maybe a Power Up Punch or an Outrage, or even something like Aerial Ace if you're facing something crazy like a fighting type or something. It gets Thunder Punch for the bulky waters in case your opponent has a bunch of them and you get a Dragon Dance up. You can bring that as kind of a nice move to kill lures, which is another valuable property in League. But otherwise, fairly inflexible in what it's running. It does, however, have the raw power to be able to punch through just about anything, regardless of how flexible or not it is. And that's why it's ranked highly in the top 5. Now, in terms of what's next, a lot of these are fairly similar in power level. Mega Gardevoir I rate very highly simply because of flexibility, which is something that a lot of the other ones in its tier don't necessarily bring to the table. Extremely high special attack, decent enough speed at 100, it's about average. Good special defense, so it can hit things very hard, especially for things like Hyper Voice's boosted Pixelate. Hits things like a truck. Very good at taking down all the dragons, which you're going to see a lot of things on these lists being tailored to fight dragons, because dragons are the main set of sweepers in League, and you need to be able to combat them. Excellent move sleds with things like Energy Ball or Grass Knot, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball. You got your standard psychic coverage. You also have support moves in Thunderwave, Will-O-Wisp. You can have Wish if you really wanted to get crazy. You get dual screen support in Light Screen and Reflect if you wanted to go crazy there. You also get a couple other moves, mainly the stuff that you're going to see that you're not going to see very commonly. Things like Safeguard if you wanted to protect yourself against status effects, as well as something like Rain Dance. And not usually something you want to run on your Mega, but I have seen it used before. And then something like Destiny Bond if you were to have like a backup, something to kill a sweeper mid-sweep. Most of the time you're going to see a lot of covers moves though on this, and the covers moves are very solid. So, one thing that gets mentioned now and again, Mega Altaria. Mega Altaria I rank in the top 5 simply because, again, it's another Dragon Dancer. It's another thing that kills dragons. Even though it's a fairy type, the big thing is that I'm sorry, even though it's a dragon type, the fact that it has fairy typing makes it better than the other dragons. It can win any dragon war that comes out simply because of its fairy typing. So, in terms of setup sweepers, when you pick Mega Altaria, you know you're going to have the top dog. So you need to build your team, your core of your team, to support the fact that you want your Mega Altaria to get in, set up, and sweep. More so than you would in the other ones. In terms of move pool, somewhat flexible, not crazy. The craziest stuff is probably something like Cotton Guard or something like that for additional buffs. But usually you're going to run something like Dragon Dance. You're going to run Return for the Pixelate boost. You're going to run Earthquake usually to get that coverage. And then generally either Fire Blast, Fire Blast Flamethrower to handle the steel types and stuff that wall you otherwise. Or maybe a Hidden Power or possibly a support move like Roost. Most of the time that's what you're going to be running on Mega Altaria, even in League. I know that's pretty standard from what you see in Ladder. It doesn't really change much here. You don't have a lot of interesting, crazy moves like something like Parasong sets. Even though it gets Parasong, it's never going to use something like that here. Stall teams are going to go for something else. So keep that in mind when you're going for Mega Altaria. Finally, in terms of Megas that I rate highly, I may rate Mega Pinter highly in top 5. I do this because it has slightly better coverage than something like Mega Lopunny, who really only has normal fighting and the elemental punches. That's all it's got. Very flexible in that, but Mega Pinter brings more to the table. It brings a lot more moves that hit more things in the league. Close combat, fighting type, flying type with obviously its Aerolate, boosted returns, priority and quick attack. It also gets Earthquake, Stone Edge, X Scissor if you needed a bug type move. Gets Swords Dance to set up, a little bit better than something like Lopunny would. It also, for whatever reason, you might run something like Knockoff just to get that extra power boost. So it has a little bit better attack power, a little bit better I little bit better sets to build off of. Something like Mega Lopunny, which I've used before, while great, excellent speed, excellent attack, pretty inflexible in terms of what you're using. You're always using 2 or 3 moves and then kind of one flex slot. With Mega Pinter, you'll really only need, say, Return, and then everything else is flexible. So that's why I rate those Megas the highest. Not to say that other Megas aren't good. Mega Alakazam is decent. I don't rate it as highly because if you have something that can take a hit from Mega Alakazam just dies. It doesn't have the defense to be able to stand up to very much. It's only got 65 defense, so it folds over pretty easy. Megas that you should stay away from. There are a couple in OU that you pretty much don't want to pick. And the reason why I say that is because they take too much team support to work properly. In League, you want to avoid, unless you have a specific game plan in mind, things like Mega Sableye. Mega Sableye is pretty much only good at stalling. So unless you plan on doing like Mega Sableye Goth style stall, you're probably not going to pull off a very good stall team. So Mega Sableye is not a top pick for balanced or offensive teams. Now, if you do plan on getting a stall balanced team, he becomes top pick, of course. But otherwise, not a high pick. You kind of want to stay away from it, even though it's really highly used in ladder, because he does take certain team support to work. Mega Sizer falls into the same principle. Mega Sizer in ladder is great. It does excellent work because you know exactly what movesets are being played for the most part, so you know where the fire type moves are coming from. In League, everything has access to fire types because just about everything has access to hidden power. Mega Sizer gets decimated by hidden power fire so many times I can't even begin to describe how many times I've lost my Sizer to any type of fire move, because a lot of things get access to fire moves like Flamethrower and Fire Blast. Everything, again, has access to hidden power. So anything with a special attack at all that just packs hidden power for your Mega Sizer is going to kill it 9 times out of 10. The only way you can really effectively get Mega Sizer to work is if you draft Rain. So you need to be prepared if you are stuck with Mega Sizer or you for some reason get Mega Sizer early. You need to draft things like Drizzle Politoed or something like that to really shore up its weaknesses, or else you're going to have a really rough time in League. Similarly, I mentioned Mega Alakazam's defenses. Great, but you have to make sure you have things like screen support or something to really help it sweep. Mega Heracross you should pretty much avoid at all costs, simply because you're not going to be able to draft the amount of speed control most of the time. That requires him to be very good. He's very slow, very hard to reliably get kills going. His defenses are okay. His attack is amazing, but he doesn't have the speed to perform well in League unless you can get the team support with multiple people with Thunderwaves, Glares, Sticky Web, Tailwind support, things of that nature. Mega Pidgeot, fine. Being able to have no guard for hurricanes and stuff like that is good, but remember that no guard works against you, and your opponents can bring low accuracy moves like Sing, for instance, or something like that to reliably put it to sleep and take it out. Mega Gallade as well. Excellent attacks, excellent versatility for moves. Great to be able to do that, but its typing leaves not much to be desired. It gets easily picked off by high-powered flying types, dark types, things like that. So be careful when you start drafting stuff like that. In terms of the actual OU tier, on the other hand, we have a ton of options available. So let me get a drink here real quick. I've been recording for hours trying to get all these videos done. So, OU tiers, very simple. Once you get your first pick out of the way, your second pick should be building a core for your first pick. So that being said, when you're looking for specific roles, this top 10 list will be able to help you figure out basically the best of the best for those roles. Now, number 1, very easily, Manphy. Manphy is probably my vote for best Pokemon in OU for League. Probably even close to best Pokemon in League, period, not counting Megas, simply because of one move, and that move is Tail Glow. Tail Glow is a better version of Nasty Plot, which is already insanely good, and the fact that it has extra support moves like Scald, Ice Beam, Energy Ball, even Psychic, to take advantage of that extra special attack, even Dazzling Gleam, really, if you wanted to have a lot of a lot of fighting or dragon things to cover. It can do so much of that type of work. And Tail Glow allows it to build on that without actually investing anything else into it. Being that it has 100 in all stats, it's very easy to do things like just run Tail Glow and Scald, spec for defense, and then use support moves on the other two moves. Things like Toxic or Rain Dance, U-Turn, Substitute, even dual screens, Light Screen and Reflect. You can do all that type of stuff with Manphy. It's so flexible. It even has the physical sets if you want to run physical. It does get knockoff. It does get, facade. It does get a lot of that stuff to be able to run physical sets if you wanted to, but generally most of the time you're going to run special sets just because of Tail Glow. Calm Mind is a thing, but I don't like Calm Mind in League. If you have access to Tail Glow, you're going to be running Tail Glow probably 9 times out of 10. The only reason to use Calm Mind is if your opponent has a completely special team, which if they're competent and they're drafting correctly, that shouldn't be the case. So keep this Pokemon in mind. If you have a chance to snag it early, take it because it's just that good. Next up on the list, pretty easy pick here in Clefable. Clefable is by and far the best utility Pokemon out there to date. Magic Guard and Unaware are both fantastic abilities for different situations. Obviously, Magic Guard eliminates all the status users, Stealth Rocks, things like that. Unaware helps you against a lot of setup sweeper teams, hyper offense teams, dual dancer teams, things like that. In terms of move slots, again, one of the best utility Pokemon. It has literally all the utility moves barring Will-O-Wisp. So you can run pretty much anything your heart desires, anything your team needs. If your team needs Thunderwave support, if it needs Rock support, and needs Heal Bell support, you have Aromatherapy. You can run Calm Blind, Moonblast if you need a setup sweeper. It has access to things like Encore. You can do all sorts of stuff with Clefable. Anything your team needs, Clefable can fill that hole easily enough. And its stats are decent enough in special and HP that it can kind of do what it needs to do. So keep this in mind as well. Even though it doesn't build a core, you can still pick it highly, just on the premise that it's going to fit into any team. In terms of genies, just about any Therian is going to be viable. We'll start with the better of the three, which is Landorus. Or it maybe not better, but certainly most popular. The ability Intimidate is extremely good in League, for the same reason that it's extremely good in VGC. And narrows down a lot of the options your opponent has. If your opponent drafted a mostly physical team, Landorus will run away with it. Its stats are very good. 145 attack, 91 speed is a little bit slow, but it does allow it to speed creep base 90s, which is kind of useful. Its defensive 90 is actually very good when you pair it with Intimidate because it becomes very bulky in the physical side. It actually has decent special attack as well at 105. It doesn't run a lot of special moves, but it has access to things like hidden powers, earth power, extrasensory and stuff. So in theory, if you wanted to catch your opponent off guard, you could totally run a special set and make it work. But most of the time you're going to run physicals. Things like Superpower, Earthquake, Stone Edge, U-Turn. He's very good at holding choice items. He's very good at holding utility items like Rocky Helmet, making them bulky. It's just overall very good. He has access to things like Swords Dance and Rock Polish for dual dancing if you wanted to run it that way. A lot of these things make him in part the better of the three genies. Mostly it has to do with the fact that he has a decent move pool and Intimidate. In terms of the other genies though, Tornadus Therian comes out very far ahead because of Regenerator. For the same reason, Regenerator makes it one of the best offensive pivots alongside Landorus' team, simply because it can come in, take a hit, use U-turn to pop right back out, and heal back up. In terms of movesets, basically it covers the special side of everything that Landorus' team doesn't. Things like Dark Pulse, Hurricanes, Focus Blast, Heat Waves. It also has access to a little bit of support moves in Tailwind, Substitute, U-turn of course, keep that momentum going, gets knockoff as well. So there's a lot of things you can do with Tornadus Therian, but most of the time it's going to be as a pivot of some kind, trying to get some extra chip damage in, getting some high-powered hits with things like Hurricane, especially if you're drafting a rain team or something. You can get a hold of that and kind of get that 100% accuracy Hurricane going. In terms of the last genie, I actually prefer to run the normal version over Thunderous Therian, simply because although Thunderous Therian is better as a setup sweeper with higher special attack, the regular Thunderous has access to Prankster. Prankster Thunderwave is extremely good at stopping a sweeper cold. Being able to half its speed right off the bat, or even, take it to 25% speed right off the bat, is extremely good. Being able to still do things like Nasty Plot with its excellent move pool coverage. It's seriously got special move coverage for just about anything you can think of. You can even run physical sets if you wanted to. It still has access to Superpower, knockoffs. It's got access to Crunch, Facade again, Hammer Arm even if you didn't want to run Superpower. It's got a lot of physical moves, but its best moves are going to be in special moves. Things like, for instance, Flash Cannon, Focus Blast, Grass Knot, Psychic, Sludge Wave, Thunderbolt, all the usual stuff. Volt Switch out in that case if you're special. It's the best set to run again is special, but he's very good as a pivot, very good as something like a support utility with all those Prankster Thunderwaves, Prankster Taunts, things like that to shut down all the setup sweepers. So any of the genies are good. After the genies, now we move into the raw power picks. Kyra Black is a high-end power pick. A lot of people are kind of on the fence about this guy. I see a lot of people underrate this guy, specifically because he's only got 95 speed. The fact of the matter is, this guy breaks things in half. 170 attack power is insane. Decent defenses, 100 defense, 125 HP. Actually decent special attack. Can run a mix set very well, and it often does. Being able to run things like Earth Power, Flash Cannon, Ice Beam, alongside things like Fusion Bolt, Outrage, stuff like that. It also has access to, of course, Stone Edge, as well as, I think, Earthquake as well. No, just Earth Power. Gets Iron Head, gets Substitute. You can get Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball if you wanted to. Gets access to Roost for recovery. Terravolt acts exactly like Mold Breaker, so it can hit things like Electros with Earth Power very well. Overall, just a really solid pick. Exceptionally good at breaking walls, especially if you have any speed support or anything like that in your team. Put a Tailwind up, bring this guy up, and he'll just wreck the entire team. So, if you need something that's actually powerful, something that's a wall breaker, that can punch holes in the team and allow your Mega to clean up, Kyra Black is the way to go. Nothing else compares. Turn my page of my notes here. Now, if you need support, Latios and Latias. The Lati twins are by far the best defoggers in the game. Exceptionally good because of their offensive stats. You can pick either one. You could also pick the Megas if you wanted to, but I personally prefer my Mega slot to be used up by something with a little bit more impact. The Megas of these two don't really offer anything other than some extra stats, which, while nice, doesn't really change how they operate. So you're better off using the normal ones and then using a Mega that kind of transforms, something like Mega Metagross, Mega Manectric, things like that, Charizard X again. So using the normal ones, Latias, the red one, of course, gets Healing Wish, while the blue one, Latios, does not. So Latias is the preferred one most of the time, but you can pick either one. They both have almost the exact same move pool. The blue one, Latios, is just a little bit more offensively designed. The red one, Latias, is just more defensively designed. They're both still very good at being offensive. Access to Draco Meteor, Dragon Pulse. Excellent move pool with Energy Ball. It's got Thunderbolt, gets Surf, gets Ice Beam. Very good move pool, very flexible. You also get access to Defog, of course, as well as Roost. As you see, or I'm sorry, not Roost, Recover. Access to Shadow Ball as well. Thunderwave support, you could run them kind of a support utility alongside their offense. So you have a lot of flexibility with them. You can choose not to bring Defog if you don't need it. You can run a Calm Mind set if you wanted to. Very popular among the Mega sets, but they can run just fine on the non-Megas as well. So just overall, exceptionally good offensive utility while being able to defog, which makes it one of the best hazards clear in the format. In terms of taking physical hits, we've already covered things like Landorus T, but now we need special hits. Tornadus Therian with Regenerator and Assault Vest is very good, but I actually believe there's a better Assault Vest carrier around, and that's Kelder. My boy Conk is amazing with Assault Vest. Assault Vest shores up his only real weakness, aside from speed, which is special defense, and makes it actually passable, roughly equivalent to his regular defense. But the main thing he has is Guts. Guts is the one reason why he can actively switch into things like Scald, take the burn, and actually benefit from it, unlike most of the rest of your team. He also gets access to very good move pool. He's got all the elemental punches. He's got Drain Punch. He's got Mach Punch for priority. He's got access to Poison Jab, as well as Knockoff. So between all of that, he's definitely got access to take out just about anything that might come in on him, especially Psychics, die to Knockoff. Fairies, die to Poison Jab, especially with Guts on. Don't be afraid to run a Flame Orb on him and actually benefit from Guts. If you find that you don't need the special defense boost, you can just easily run him full offense and just go to town. His attack stats, being at 140 and decent health, he can run things like Stone Edge, Earthquake, stuff like that, and be able to take on a lot of the things even though they're not stab. Overall, just a very good person to hold Assault Vest. In my opinion, one of the best in the tier. In terms of the BL picks, there are a couple I want to point out. Victini is the major one. Just like Manphy, 100 in each stat. The difference is a lot of people, and something a lot of people don't realize, is this thing is one of the best choice banders in the format, bar none. V-Create, which is a signature move, 180 base power. 180 base power. Are you kidding me? That's like Hoopa Unbound level. You put a choice band thing on this, and you spam V-Create the whole time, switch out every so often, you're basically hitting things for the equivalent of Hoopa Unbound on a perfectly legal Pokemon. V-Create with a choice band, or even without a choice band, hits like a mock truck on a nuclear missile. It's just extremely powerful. It also gets access to a wide variety of other coverage, both physical and special. Obviously, you got Blue Flare, Dazzling Gleam, stuff like I think it gets Psychic as well. Yep, gets Psychic and Psyshock for the special side. Heat Wave for the special side. Overheat, but it also gets like Bolt Strike, Fire Punch, Flare Blitz, stuff like that for the physical side. Gets things like Thunder Punch and Thunderbolt, Thunder Wave. Gets access to Taunt, being it's very fast, it's effective user of Taunt. It is decently at holding an Assault Vest. I prefer choice items on this though, because Victini just breaks holes in things. Similar to Kyra Black, only in this case it's pretty much tailor-made only to fire types. Overall, very good. If you see Victini or if you draft Victini, make sure to consider Choice Band, because Choice Band V-Create will do wonders for your team. The other major BL user I want to look at, and basically number 11 on my top 10 list, Terrakion. Justified makes it one of the two major things in League that I consider very good knockoff targets. Things you want to have to switch into knockoff if you feel you're going to be vulnerable to it. Being resistant to knockoff, getting justified for the attack boost, and then having the speed to compensate or to complement the fact that it's going to be hitting things very hard after those boosts. Does have a pretty decent move pool. It's got close combat, got Earthquake, Stone Edge. It's got boosting moves in Rock Polish and Swords Dance. Pretty big moveset. It's got access to Taunt, making it one of the fast Taunt / Stealth Rockers for leads in the format, so he's very good as a lead as well. The big thing though is he's very good at killing his lures. Things like X Scissor and Zen Headbutt are fantastic for killing the Psychics that are going to come in. He gets Poison Jab as well to kill the fairies who might come in. So don't think that you're safe just because you switch those in to try and kill this thing. This can take advantage of that. Overall though, that being the OU tier and the big ones, again keep in mind you need to be building for cores. So just because I didn't mention it doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. Things you do want to stay away from in the non-mega form, Excadrill is a very underwhelming Pokemon unless you're drafting Sand. Something that a lot of people don't give proper credit for in the high-end ladders. High-end ladders know that if it doesn't have Sand Rush, it's just too slow to be able to compete very well at anything other than maybe Rapid Spinning. Its typing is okay, but in League, keep in mind, everybody can have fire types. Same problem as Mega Sizer. If you don't have that Sand boost to get that special defense increase and get that speed increase, you're going to have a bad time with Excadrill. Things like Heatran follow a similar problem. Quite a lot of things get fighting type moves and ground type moves. You could pop an air balloon on Heatran, but it's still going to be vulnerable to the 9 billion superpowers that come out. Even most special things, things like the genies, even something like Goodra or Nidoking or something like that in the UU tier, they all get superpower as well. They can take Heatran out very easily, and you can't keep it defended from both fighting and ground types at the same time. So I would try and avoid things like Heatran and Excadrill, because you're going to find better versions of Rapid Spinners and Fire types and stuff in the UU tier. Focus your OU picks on things that you might actually be able to use very well. Things like Dragonite, which is just an overall decent pick. Things like the Latias twins again. Magnezone is fine. Mew is a very versatile Pokemon. Even though it doesn't get stab coverage on anything relevant, it's still decent. It can do a lot of different things. Raikou, of course, is still very good. Rotom Wash, again, still very good. Nice bulky water. Good to have on the team as a pivot. Stuff like Slowbro, excellent defensively. Starmie is a good offensive rapid spinner. Probably the better of the two that I would personally use in OU tier over something like Excadrill. Talonflame is fine. You just need to be able to draft entry hazard support. Skarmory is okay. Superior is okay. Things like Tyranitar are good. They get better if you can draft a Sand team or possibly even Mega Tyranitar. Weavile is exceptional as an Ice type. Don't sleep on it. It's one of the fastest Icicle Crash users in the format. One of the best things to take out dragons with in the format, and it still gets things like Stab Knockoff to kind of catch things off guard. Otherwise, not a lot of things I like in the BL tier that I haven't mentioned. Volcarona and Zygarde are fine. They're not exceptional, but they're fine. Good setups. Togekiss is an okay fairy type as well as Sylveon, which I passed by earlier. They're alright fairy types. If you certainly fear, like you see a lot of your opponents drafting dragons, it would be a good idea to pick one up. Out of the two, I like Sylveon better, but Togekiss is also fine. Staraptor for Intimidate support if you feel you'll need it. But otherwise, not a whole lot of exciting things in the BL tier. And then obviously you have your extra megas and stuff like that. So, again, that's the OU tier. Don't be too upset if you don't see something on my list that you think needs to be there. Again, we're building cores for this tier. Worry about power picks and something like UU. UU has very clear powerful Pokemon and very clear non-powerful Pokemon, and make sure to take advantage of stuff like that. Until then, again, this is the OU tier. Tomorrow will be the UU tier. I'll see you guys tomorrow.